And this is the quote that makes me laugh. All right, you ready for this? This is one I see on the internet all the time, Tone. I chuckle every time I see it. 15 other quarterbacks could have won the Super Bowl with this roster.
That kills me,
Bullshit.
honestly.
Bullshit. No, they couldn't. The system matters. The system matters. Like, get out of here with that crap.
That kills me, Gates, honestly, because not just the system mattering. I feel like people underestimate the mental aspect of this game, the intangibles, right, that are required to not only play in Philadelphia, but run this offense, right? What Jalen Hurts has been able to do in Philadelphia, he's been able to elevate his game in big moments where a lot of these guys who they consider more talented than him have not been able to do that, right? I was talking to my man, Laura Brunson, about this. And I told him straight up, I said, I would much rather have, and this is just me just trying to use a metaphor here, but I would much rather have a B+ quarterback that can elevate his game to A+ in big games than rather have an A+ quarterback that shrinks to B+ in big games. That's 100%. Just me. And 100%. Again, that's not me trying to disparage Jalen Hurts and where he stands, but they consider a lot of these guys to be better than him. But he's outperformed them in the biggest of moments. He hasn't laid an egg in big moments. He's done his job to the highest degree in these big moments, and you put all these other guys in front of him, and it blows my mind that they try to say, "Oh yeah, I know 15 quarterbacks that could have won with this team." How so? It's catered around his skill set.
Exactly. Like, I'll give you this: if Josh Allen isn't making a critical mistake, that's not a guarantee that he won't. Because I'm sorry, go to the AFC Championship game in the first half of that game, he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn in that game. He should have been picked off like 3 times on the first 2 possessions.
And didn't they fumble like 3 or 4 times, but they happen to recover them all?
Like, Josh Allen, I love him. He's talented, but the dude makes critical mistakes that shouldn't be made. Like, talent-wise, okay, I could see the argument that, if the circumstances line up and fate's 100%, sure. Patrick Mahomes is crazy uber talented. If you give him this kind of coaching staff with this kind of front office, with this kind of offensive line, like, yeah, of course. But, like, dude, you start getting into some pretty questionable territory when you're talking about the Dak Prescotts and these dudes. Dak's a really fundamentally sound quarterback. But for whatever reason, when the lights get bright, it ain't clicked. It hasn't clicked, man.
And that's a real thing. That's a very real thing. Same thing with Justin Herbert. Yeah, he's talented as they come. But we all saw that wild card game against the Texans. He looked like a practice squad quarterback. Like, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, he does. He's not good. Sorry, man. Again.
No, you're fine. You're fine. It's just I look at some of these guys that they claim is more talented than him, and the comparisons they make. I'm saying to myself, this game, this NFL product is so much more than just being the most talented guy, being able to run the fastest, having the biggest arm. Oh, I can throw a football over the mountains. No, it's more than that. It's more than that.
Look at Tua. Tua's got 2 of the fastest receivers in the league, but it doesn't change the fact that Tua still struggles to push the ball downfield. Like, I mean, I'm sorry. Tua doesn't have the strongest arm. He's good. He can read a defense. He can get the ball out quickly. He can process and read fast. Still limited. He's limited. He can't push the ball vertically. He's predicated on those dudes getting open and getting open fast. Like, to be quite honest about the situation.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And again, the guys they compare Jalen Hurts to, and that's why I kind of like. Again, I get so frustrated with it because Jalen Hurts, did he come in being the most highly touted quarterback in his draft class? No. Out of those top 5 guys that were taken out of his draft class, or the quarterbacks that we acknowledge from that 2020 draft class, he has the most playoff wins out of all of them. I think he has the most career wins total out of all of them. But a lot of people say, hey, well, if I had A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, I'd be winning a lot too. And my thing is he still has to throw the ball to those guys. Those guys have had A.J. Brown in particular has had his best years with Jalen Hurts throwing the football. Right. So just as much as they're helping him, they're benefiting from him being able to do his job. A.J. Brown was on millions of dollars worth of game. And he said, they were talking about how A.J. Brown was talking about how he was drafted to play baseball by the Padres, and he said one of the reasons he went back to football is because the way that the speed at which that baseball was coming. He was like, I was used to hitting 85, 84. I start seeing 90s, 95. I'm like, oh, okay. Let me go back to playing football. That's my thing.
Yeah.
And then
brings your hands.
Right, exactly. And then, Gilly and Wallow, they were saying how, listen, that football comes at you pretty fast too. He said, yeah, but there are a lot of guys, different guys throw the ball different ways. There are a lot of guys that really put a lot of heat on it. He said Jalen likes to throw with a lot of touch. He throws a very catchable football. And my thing is, I want a guy who throws the most catchable football, who throws the football the furthest, or who throws the football the sharpest. I want a guy who throws the most catchable football.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Brett Favre was out there breaking receivers' fingers, but he also was breaking defensive backs' fingers, throwing all them picks.
I'm saying, man. So I'm saying. So that Kevin Patullo, Jalen Hurts relationship is going to be interesting to see develop, because again, he knows Jalen. He's seen Jalen develop from year one, and I just think, like you said, it was the easiest transition, especially when you're late in the game. Most of the hires have been taken. Kevin Patullo knows the system, knows the personnel, knows the building, right? The players know him. And also, he got the seal of approval from guys like A.J. Brown and Lane Johnson. That's good enough for me right now. And it just kills me when people try to pretend like they know the science behind this guy. And it's just like, yo, come on. Like, hiring guys, there's no guarantee a successful college coach is going to come in here and do a good job. There's no guarantee.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting to me, like, because when you talk about Kevin Patullo, it's just tough to judge it because you just don't know. Like, I'm not going to be over praiseworthy about the hire, nor am I going to be over critical about it, just because we don't know. He's never been in the position before, so it's a lot of uncertainty, right? Like, we don't know how he's going to react to it. I mean, as you stated earlier, everyone's got to get their start somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
got to get start somehow.
If not this opportunity, then when? Like, when the team is just a crapshoot, and you know what I'm saying? Like, the ship's going down, we're just going to throw a guy in there and see, because that's how. To be fair, that's how Shane Steichen got his start. Anthony Lynn was going down. The ship was going down, man. And then basically Anthony Lynn was gone, and they moved Shane Steichen and gave him a chance to work with Herbert at the end of it. And then he had a full year the next year to work with Herbert. And, they still decided to move in a different direction. Yeah. Frank Reich. Frank Reich was an NFL quarterback, good player, good backup, I should say. But Frank Reich, he had to get his start calling plays somewhere. Someone had to give him the opportunity. And it's just tough because, like, when you're in that situation, I do think that some people tend to overvalue calling plays. I really wished I could take some of the people who think that this is like such a scientific thing to call in plays. I'm almost tempted to take another coaching position and just to bring them with me, just to let them see a play sheet and see how it actually works, just so they can see, like, man, most of the stuff is predetermined during the week.
Right.
Like, it's not as difficult as people want to make it out to be.
Right.
Like, if you're failing as a play caller, it's more than likely you're failing during the week of preparation, to be quite honest. Now, I'm not going to say that people don't have a magical touch to the feel of the game. There are people that do, but it's not as difficult as people want to make it out to be. Most of the time, you're going to fail off of a lack of proper preparation for the week, so your advanced scouting was crap, or you're going to fail because of execution and personnel. The other team's just better than you. Like, just straightforward.
Yeah. It's just that simple. The way team's built.
Like, if you give me a good enough team, you can give me a crappy play caller, they're probably going to win a lot of games. Like, you know what I mean?
That's a good point. And every coach says, "Hey, listen, you want to show me a good coach? Well, show me their players." Simple as that. I get frustrated again. I get frustrated when people try to pretend like the Eagles are doing something abnormal. Just coach better, develop better. Tell your GM to be better at his job. Tell your GM and your staff to be better at constructing contracts. Right? A lot of people like to act like the Philadelphia Eagles have access to this secret well of the cap space that no one knows about. And it's like, no, try harder. Harder. Howie Roseman made it very clear when Jalen Hurts became the starter, or leading up to that season with him starting, he said to himself, or just based off the decision, he said, okay, I got this young quarterback that I'm giving a shot here. Let me at least give him a fair shake at this. I'm going to draft the receiver, Devontae Smith. I'm going to draft the offensive lineman, Landon Dickerson. Give him a fair shot. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then you saw what he did with it. Okay, let's try to add a little bit more to that. All right, let's trade for A.J. Brown. Everybody had a chance. Everybody had a chance at Smitty. Everybody had a chance at AJ Brown. Everybody had a chance at Saquon Barkley. Everybody had a chance at Landon Dickerson. They all had a chance at Mekhi Becton. They all had a chance at Jordan Mailata, right? The bottom line is they had a chance at Dallas Goedert, but y'all didn't choose them. You didn't construct your roster the way you did. And they love to say, oh, Jalen Hurts had a super team. These guys were developed over the course of years. Landon Dickerson was developed. Devontae Smith was developed, right? On offense, there are two pieces that you obviously there were obvious home runs when you brought him in. But at the time, people gave up on him. Saquon Barkley, they said he was washed. They said that. We signed him all of a sudden. Oh, no, you guys got a super team. But when we made all these moves going into the season, they said that I got the Eagles not even making the playoffs, not even winning their division. This is after the moves already made. But now, all of a sudden, we won a Super Bowl, super team. Anybody could have won with this roster. Well, y'all said the guy we had on the roster couldn't win with this roster before the season started. So which is it now?
I think there's a lot of misunderstanding too about the way Lonely B. I see your comments in there. Just I'm trying to talk with Tone. That's why I'm not really tracking the chat like that, Tone, and Lonely. But Lonely, the only pushback I would give you in terms of like talking about Trent Dilfer and talking about like the Tampa Bay teams is when Tampa Bay won their Super Bowl, John Gruden was the coach. John Gruden runs a West Coast system. John Gruden does not give leadway to his quarterbacks at the line of scrimmage. They're told where to go by their drops with the ball and their progressions. So systems matter. It's more controlled by the offensive coordinator. John Gruden was the more the defining factor in that run than their quarterback play was, like Brad Johnson and those guys. With Baltimore, a little different. You know, they did have a 2,000-yard back. They had pretty much one of the greatest defenses ever. Like, you know, structurally, I can understand where you're coming from and saying like Baltimore was built similarly to Philly and how they won it. But once again, you're getting into the structure of the way that you play conceptually in terms of your system. And Jalen Hurts is playing more so in an Erhardt Perkins style, you know, system to where quarterbacks have more leeway at the line of scrimmage. Hence the reason, even though Tom Brady hadn't thrown for 4,000 yards in his first like 3 or 4 years in the league, they were hoisting Lombardis. They were hoisting Lombardis to a solid run game, a power run game at that. And they had guys out there that were really underrated. Like people like to say like, oh, he didn't have AJ Brown. He didn't have Devontae Smith. No, he had a 30-year-old Troy Brown who was playing two ways, corner and playing as a wide receiver, and was pretty much on trajectory to be an all-pro at the cornerback position, playing two ways in his 30s. His 30s. Like that's how good of a player he was, man. He was an incredibly good player. So like the system and scheme sometimes gets left out of that stuff. That's when I say I laugh at people when they say that 15 other quarterbacks could have done that. No, they couldn't. No, they couldn't. Man. The scheme and the system matter.
It's not a video game. It's not plug and play. The NFL is one of those sports that's not plug and play. It's rare you have a situation where someone just plugs in and just changes everything, right? But this game, I get so frustrated with it. Like this game, I feel like you're low key disrespecting the game when people talk like that.
Yeah,
it's so much more nuanced than just have the best players and you win. It's not like the game doesn't work like that.
Just like the secret sauce in Kansas City. Listen, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Pat Mahomes isn't like a world talent. He is. He's still playing in a West Coast system with spread elements. And there's a two-parted way there. On one hand, it's a West Coast system. Andy Reid defines where the ball goes. On the other hand, it is Pat Mahomes, and when he goes off schedule, it's special. Like it's complex, man. It's not a black and white issue. Like you get what I'm saying? Like, there's all kinds of gray in this in these schemes and like the way that they work, right? Like that's the thing that's kind of hard. Like go back to the Super Bowl. Pat Mahomes' toughness and his ability to elude the rush was a big reason why the Chiefs could come back. But let's be real. Those touchdowns were produced by Andy Reid, not Pat Mahomes. Andy leaned into the running game in the second half, and then he started creating space for his receivers by motion and movement. Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, there's so much gray in these things, guys, to be quite honest. Pat Mahomes, world class, right? You know, you look at Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow, super good quarterback, man. Really sees the field well. Also running a West Coast scheme. It's dictated by the offensive coordinator. Now, can Joe Burrow be on the same page with that offensive coordinator and take it to another level? Of course. Like there's the gray area there. But West Coast systems, you can literally tell by the drop where the ball should be, where the steps are on the balls. You can listen to some of the old school guys like Bill Walsh and them talk about it, and they can tell you by the footwork where the ball's supposed to be in a West Coast system. It's super defined by the offensive coordinator. When you get to like an Earhart Perkins system, that's a little bit more quarterback, leveraged. That's the quarterback reading things a little bit more. That's the quarterback being able to have autonomy at the line of scrimmage more. That's why you have these subsets of the system, guys. So when you hear like the Gulf Coast or you hear the Texas Coast, those are, or even the Shanahan system, those are variations of the West Coast system. And each of those systems are different. So the Shanahan system, the quarterbacks really have no autonomy at all. It's completely McVay and Shanahan. Those dudes are they're running everything. Now, obviously, I think McVay has had to recant a little bit there. He's had to relinquish a little control to a guy like Matthew Stafford.
Yeah, of course.
But nonetheless, like I guarantee you, Stafford has never had a coordinator or coach who's basically the coordinator as driven in terms of like is involved in the offense with him. When you get to like, the Texas Coast and the Gulf Coast stuff, that's when they're devolving some of the power back to the quarterback a little bit, right? Dak gets a little bit more autonomy at the line of scrimmage than like a rookie quarterback in the West Coast system would. Like he's going to get a little bit more autonomy there to do things. So you get these variations of the scheme, but the scheme you play in does matter when you're judging the performance of the quarterback. Like many of those touchdowns in the postseason that Saquon Barkley scored, Jalen audibled the play. Like,
right. He created those opportunities. Yeah.
Yeah. Like you heard Brady speak about it, guys. Brady said, if you want to judge quarterback plays, stop judging these fancy passes that are like 1% of throws in the NFL and judge whether or not the quarterback is getting the offense into the correct play.
Pre-snap.
Yeah.
Tom Brady
really
was a pre-snap king. And I feel like that's been the biggest jump, in my opinion, in Jalen Hurts' career, at least going into this season, right? Especially when he's been asked to maybe throw less and really just make the right decisions at the line of scrimmage and put the ball in the right people's hands at the right time. I feel like that's been his biggest development, right? It's funny, he did less but developed so much more than he ever has because he's had so much more autonomy at the line of scrimmage, and he's had to really read these defenses and say, okay, this is a situation where I have to give Saquon the ball. Okay, this is a situation where I got to take my shot here. He's had to be really disciplined in this offense and had to exercise had to really stretch his level of self-control and put his ego to the side. But again, I think it helped his development, especially pre-snap, for the better. Let me ask you this about Jalen Hurts, though. Again, he's developed a lot over the course of his career since 2020. No, it's not even a debate or a conversation in regards to how much he's developed, right? Two different quarterbacks from year one to now. What do you think is the one thing or the one part of Jalen Hurts' game that requires more development going into his next season? What do you think is the next step in Jalen Hurts' development as the franchise quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles now that he's a Super Bowl champion?
So I'm going to say this, and I'm going to add a disclaimer. The disclaimer is, guys, unless you're in the actual meeting rooms, you don't know fully the protection calls. But I will say that there have been instances where somebody is wrong in protection. Either the center and the right guard are not this is what I'm going to say, guys. When you fan, you normally see this kind of motion. That means fan. You're fanning the protection. Okay. There was a play to where they had basically a weird setup to where like they were asking Saquon to block two players. So instead of fanning the protection, they asked Saquon to basically pick up the most dangerous guy, and Saquon went outside when then they. Makai just basically releases a guy on the inside, and then they're right on top of Jalen. So I don't like in that situation. There's so much gray that like I don't want Pamela, Miss Hurts. I don't want you coming after me. So
she ain't got no problem pressing you. I love it though. I love it.
Yeah, because I don't really know. I'm not in the meeting room. I don't know exactly like what's being done there. But structurally, something is wrong. Like structurally, we gotta be a little better there. Like there's a lot that's improved. I'm super proud of what Jalen was able to do. He's been able to get us into the right play, but there are some moments there where it's like, oh boy, like I don't care if you got a hot call, with a quick out to a receiver or whatever. it ain't going to matter, man, if pressure is coming up in your face immediately through the middle. Like, you just no time to get to a hot read like that. There's just no way. Structurally, there's some things like that it's got to be better. And it happened quite a bit to where you would see the center do this weird thing with his arms, and it is something that they're teaching them. But I was always wondering myself, and I haven't had a chance to talk to some of the guys in our community, like my guy Caleb Brennan. He's a former center, played for I think it was Southern Charleston. Jalen Williams played for Virginia State. Those guys like that. Jalen Williams, my guy, DJ, my guy DJ. DJ, former nose tackle, knows a lot about, the line of scrimmage play. I wanted to ask them why they didn't why the hell weren't we fanning the protection there? like as a quarterback, I want you to fan there, bro. Like, we need to fan the protection here, man. Like, I don't want immediate pressure in my face. I can handle the guy coming from the outside. Like, why are we not fanning the protection here? Like, I wanted to know that. And that's something I don't know.
Yeah, you noticed some things on the interior, especially in that NFC Championship game when Landon came in first for Cam, and Landon started dealing with the knee, and you saw Landon kind of just throwing his arms out, trying to occupy space, but it seemed it didn't look pretty at all. And Cam, you saw the difference. Obviously, Cam was dealing with the back, but you just saw the difference in how he handled that situation. Yeah. So I guess how much of it do you put on just the newness of that interior, right? This is the first season those combination of three guys have played together, right? And then on top of that, you throw it in that Mekhi Becton is a new guard. Mm-hmm. Cam Jurgens, first time starting at NFL center, played center in college, but he was a right guard the season prior. Landon Dickerson had to go back and forth between center and left guard in that game, right? So and then Tyler Steen came in a few times. That interior was the most banged up in comparison to the tackles throughout the season, but they've played most of the games. How much of it do you put on just the shuffleboard of it all and on the interior and the lack of experience those guys playing together?
A lot. And you can add Saquon to that mix too. Like, I don't know who's at fault for it. Gotcha. I don't know if it was Jalen not setting the protection correctly. I don't know if Jalen is calling the protection and the center and the right guard being new at these positions aren't picking it up correctly. I don't know if it was Saquon missing the call in the protection. I don't know where the blame falls. I just know that something didn't go right there. Like, I can't legitimately say like it's this person's fault, but I know between those guys, something went right. Something didn't go right there. That's why, like, I would love to have like Jalen and Caleb and like my guy DJ. I'd like to have those guys like show them the plays, plug it in, and just ask them from their perspective what went wrong. Walk us through it, man. Walk us through it as guys that played down in the trenches. Like, what happened here? What is Saquon doing? Why didn't we fan the protection here? Like, what happened? Like, those guys would probably have better answers for the structure of the offense and like kind of what the expectations are. They probably could give a little bit more insight because they're especially a guy like Jalen who played left guard, and then you got a guy like Caleb. Caleb played center. Those guys, they understand it more. They understand those calls a little bit better.